One mistaken identity binds her to a billionaire, turning a single accident into love. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The night begins with the soft hum of traffic outside the downtown convention center, headlights sliding across wet pavement as a light drizzle mists the air. Lena hurries through the parking lot, clutching a stack of tutoring worksheets against her chest, her breath clouding in the cool night. She is exhausted from a 12-hour day, 3 tutoring sessions, 1 café shift, and now a last-minute favor for her friend who begged her to drop off materials for a corporate workshop. Her second-hand coat is too thin for the damp chill, and the heels she borrowed from her roommate bite into her ankles. But she keeps whispering to herself, just 5 minutes. Drop it off and go home. Inside the chaos of arriving guests, black SUVs glide to the curb one after another, chauffeurs opening doors for men in tailored suits and women wrapped in shimmering dresses. Lena clearly does not belong here, and she feels it in every sideways glance. She tucks a loose strand of hair behind her ear, lowers her gaze, and heads toward what she thinks is the staff entrance. A sudden downpour bursts from the clouds, and she breaks into a run, splashing through shallow puddles. She sees an SUV idling with its back doors slightly open, interior lights glowing warm and inviting. A voice in her head says, "That must be the ride they said would take the materials to the event floor." She hesitates for half a second before sliding in, breathless. "I'm so sorry I'm late. The rain came out of nowhere. Here, the documents are in this folder." The man inside looks up from his phone. Sharp jawline, neat black hair, a suit that probably costs more than her rent for 3 months. His dark eyes narrow just slightly, as if assessing whether she is a threat. He opens his mouth, as though to correct her, but then, for reasons unknown to even himself, he stops. Outside, the security team is waving impatiently at the driver to keep moving. The man studies Lena for another second, then closes his phone slowly. "Seatbelt," he says calmly. Lena blinks. "Oh, okay." She fumbles for it, confused but too flustered to argue as the SUV pulls into traffic. She tries to steady her breathing, staring at the raindrops racing across the window. "I'm really sorry," she whispers. "They told me the company driver would handle this. I didn't mean to intrude." His voice is low, unreadable. "It's fine." The way he says it, controlled, almost amused, sends a strange flutter down her spine. Lena tries not to look directly at him, but every detail pulls her in. The loosened tie, the faint shadow of stubble, the kind of quiet power that fills the car more than any words could. She has no idea. She just sat beside Adrian Vale, the billionaire founder of Vale Dynamics, a name splashed across financial headlines she never has time to read. And Adrian has no reason to let a stranger stay in his car, except something about her sincerity disarms him. The rain drums harder, muting the world outside as fate nudges them closer, 2 lives colliding in a single, absurd mistake. And this mistake is the one that will change everything. As the SUV merges onto the main road, the rain streaks across the windows in thin silver lines, softening the neon lights outside and turning the city into a blur of colors. Lena keeps her arms tightly wrapped around the folder on her lap, as if it could shield her from the awkwardness pulsing through the air. Her heart thuds so loudly she wonders if the stranger beside her can hear it. Adrian glances her way only once, but that single glance is enough to make her sit straighter. He has that calm, collected presence that powerful men carry without effort, yet he has not raised his voice or demanded an explanation. That unsettles her more than anger would have. She clears her throat. "I really thought this was the correct car. My friend said the materials had to get inside immediately." He listens, saying nothing, but the faint upward pull at the corner of his mouth suggests he finds her rambling more endearing than irritating. The car turns toward the convention center's rear entrance, the section normally reserved for VIPs, though Lena does not realize it. She is too busy rehearsing how to apologize again. When the driver stops, she reaches for the door handle, determined to exit before causing more trouble, but the bodyguard outside opens it first. The man peers inside, confused. "Sir, the check-in team is asking if you need escorting. And, would you like me to handle the delivery?" Adrian looks at Lena before answering. "She has it." The guard nods and steps back. Lena steps out, blinking as the rain mist cools her cheeks. The convention center looms above her, glass walls reflecting streaks of passing headlights. People in sharp suits hurry through the entrance, badges swinging on lanyards. She feels tiny in comparison. Adrian exits the SUV on the opposite side, speaking quietly into his phone. Someone immediately rushes toward him, addressing him with the kind of respect she has only ever seen directed at department heads or wealthy donors. She does not recognize the name he is called. She does not know she should, and he does not correct her assumption that he is just another staff member. She hurries into the building, flashing an apologetic smile at the event coordinator. She drops off the folder, relieved that her part is done. When she steps outside again, she finds Adrian standing under the canopy, watching the rainfall as if lost in thought. She hesitates, unsure if she should thank him or slip away quietly. Before she decides, he turns toward her. The rain's reflection dances in his dark eyes. "You handled that better than most people would," he says. She laughs nervously. "I handled it terribly. I practically invaded your car. You were trying to help a friend. That is not terrible." His voice is low, steady, strangely grounding. She tucks her damp hair behind her ear, suddenly aware of her soaked heels and the fact that her mascara is probably smudged. She forces a smile. "Well, thank you for not throwing me out." "You are welcome," he replies, and there is something in his tone she cannot interpret. Something curious, something lingering. She gives him a small wave and starts walking toward the bus stop at the far end of the lot, unaware that he is still watching her, unaware that a single mistake has already changed the path of both their lives, unaware that this billionaire stranger is about to become the most important person she has ever met. The next morning arrives faster than Lena expects, sunlight leaking through the thin curtains of her small rented room and reminding her that she barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she kept seeing the stranger from the SUV, the way his voice sounded steady even when she was frantic, the way he watched her walk away as if trying to understand her. She shakes the thought off and gets ready for another shift at the café, sliding her worn sneakers on because her borrowed heels nearly destroyed her feet the night before. The morning rush is slow, and she settles into a familiar rhythm of brewing coffee, wiping counters, and pretending everything in her life is normal. But her mind keeps drifting back. She catches herself staring at the door, half expecting him to walk through even though it makes no logical sense. He was clearly someone important, someone with people swarming around him, someone who probably forgot about her the moment she stepped out of the SUV. That is what she tells herself until the small bell above the entrance chimes and her breath halts. Adrian Vale steps inside, dressed far more casually than last night, wearing a dark sweater and jeans, blending in with the morning crowd except for the undeniable confidence in the way he moves. For a split second, Lena wonders if she is hallucinating from lack of sleep. But he is real, and he is looking directly at her. He approaches the counter, and she forces herself to smile, even though her pulse jumps like she is sprinting uphill. "Good morning," she says, trying not to sound too surprised. "What can I get for you?" He glances at the menu, but shakes his head. "I will take whatever you recommend." It is such a small line, but something about the way he says it makes her chest warm. She prepares the drink carefully, grateful for something to focus on. When she hands it over, his fingers brush hers by accident. The contact is brief, but sends a tiny shock up her arm. He takes a sip, nodding once in approval. "I wanted to say thank you again for yesterday," he says. "Most people would have panicked or run off. You stayed calm." She lets out a breathy laugh. "Calm is definitely not the word I would use." "Maybe not," he replies. "But you handled yourself with sincerity. That is rare." She looks away shyly, suddenly self-conscious of her simple apron and messy ponytail. "I was just trying to fix my mistake." "Sometimes mistakes are how the right people cross paths," he says, his voice lower now, almost thoughtful. Her heart thumps hard at that. Before she can respond, a customer waves her over for help, and she excuses herself with an apologetic smile. Adrian waits at a corner table, watching her move through the café with quiet grace, never rushing, always kind, even when tired. Something about her simplicity steadies him in a way he cannot explain. When her break finally comes, he gestures toward the chair across from him. She hesitates, then sits. He leans forward slightly. Lena, what do you do when you are not delivering folders to the wrong cars? She bursts into surprised laughter, covering her face with her hands before answering. I tutor kids, I serve coffee, and I try to save enough money to keep my brother in school. Nothing glamorous. Adrian studies her gently, as if every word she speaks gives him a clearer picture of who she is. She has no idea that the man sitting across from her, dressed like an ordinary customer, has built an empire. And he does not volunteer that information. He simply wants a moment of normalcy with someone who sees him as a person, not a headline. As their conversation deepens, neither of them notices how much time passes, or how fate has already started stitching their lives together from a single, perfect mistake. Over the next few days, Lena tries to convince herself that Adrian's visit to the café was a one-time moment, a coincidence that should not mean anything, but her heart refuses to obey. Every time the bell over the café door rings, her breath catches. Every time a well-dressed customer steps inside, she wonders if it might be him. She tells herself she is being ridiculous, that someone like him, someone who moves through the world with quiet authority, would never make time for someone like her. But fate has a stubborn way of repeating itself. On a cool Friday afternoon, as the sun dips low and the café's warm lights glow against the glass, Adrian walks in again. No suit, no entourage, just him. His gaze finds her instantly, and his smile is small but unmistakably genuine. I was in the neighborhood, he says when he approaches the counter. Thought I would stop by. She knows he is lying. Men like him do not just happen to be in neighborhoods like hers. But she plays along, fighting the stupid grin threatening to take over her face. He orders the same drink she made for him last time, and when she hands it over, he nods toward the same corner table as before. If you have a break soon, I would like to talk. She should say no. She should keep this simple, professional, distant, but a part of her that has been tired for too long finally says yes. When she sits across from him, he places his phone face down on the table, a gesture that somehow feels more intimate than anything else. How has your week been, he asks. She lets out a short, humorless laugh. Chaotic. One of the kids I tutor has started hiding his homework in the refrigerator. My landlord raised the rent again. And my brother keeps saying he wants to quit school to get a job, which I refuse to let happen. Adrian listens like every detail matters. It is unnerving how focused he is, how present he remains, even in a noisy cafe, filled with distractions. When she finishes, she attempts to redirect the spotlight. What about you? What do you do exactly? You never really said. His eyes shift, just barely, the smallest flicker of hesitation passing through them. I work in technology, he says carefully, the same vague phrasing he used the night they met. She tilts her head. Technology covers a lot of things. Are you a programmer or something? Something like that, he replies with a faint smile. He is not lying. But he is not telling the entire truth either, and for the first time he wonders why he feels the need to hide who he is. Maybe it is because Lena looks at him like he is a person and not a headline. Maybe he wants to stay in that small pocket of normalcy a little longer. After a moment of silence, he gestures to the sketchbook partially sticking out of her bag. Do you draw? She blushes instantly, pulling the bag closer to her side. It is nothing serious. Just something I do when I have time. May I see? His tone is soft, almost cautious, as if he knows how personal the request is. She hesitates, but slowly hands him the worn sketchbook. He flips through the pages, his expression shifting from curiosity to quiet admiration. Her drawings are raw, expressive, full of life and emotion she rarely shows out loud. These are incredible, he says. Her face warms. They are messy. They are honest, he corrects gently. Something in her chest tightens at his words because no one has ever said that to her before. As he continues flipping through the book, he stops on a sketch of a rainy street with headlights reflecting across wet pavement. The scene looks familiar. Is this from the night we met? He asks softly. She freezes. Maybe. I just draw what stays in my head. He closes the sketchbook carefully, almost reverently, and hands it back to her. I am glad I stayed in your head, he says. His voice is low, warm, carrying a meaning she is almost too afraid to acknowledge. She cannot think of anything to say. Her heart beats in frantic, disorganized rhythms. Before she can gather herself, he stands. I should let you get back to work. But, would you like to meet at the little art gallery on 5th Street tomorrow? Just to look around. She blinks, startled. Like a date. He smiles, a slow, disarming smile that reaches his eyes. Like two people who met by accident and maybe do not want that accident to end. She should say no. She should protect herself. But for the first time in a long time, hope feels like a door that is slightly open, and she wants to walk through it. The next afternoon arrives with the kind of soft golden sunlight that makes the city look gentler than usual, and Lena finds herself standing outside the small art gallery on 5th Street with her palms sweating inside her thrift store gloves. She has never been on a real date before, not one where she felt seen, not one where she was invited because someone genuinely wanted her company, and her stomach twists with a strange mix of excitement and fear. She keeps repeating to herself that this is not a date, that Adrian was. Very careful with his words, but her heartbeat ignores every attempt to calm it. When he arrives, she almost does not recognize him at first. He is dressed casually again, wearing a charcoal sweater and a dark jacket, and for a moment, he looks like any man walking down the sidewalk. But then he smiles at her, that quiet smile that melts something inside her, and suddenly he is unmistakably him. You made it, he says. Of course, she replies, though her voice comes out softer than she intends. They step inside the gallery, the warm air wrapping around them like a soft blanket. The space is small but filled with light, each painting illuminated by gentle overhead lamps. Visitors wander slowly, speaking in hushed tones, their footsteps quiet on the polished floor. Immediately, Lena's eyes widen in wonder. She has walked by this gallery for years, but never had the courage to enter. She moves from painting to painting, absorbing every brushstroke, every shadow, every detail. Adrian watches her, not the art. You like it here, he says, not as a question, but as an observation. I love it, she admits. It feels like breathing. He nods, understanding more than she expects. They wander through the exhibit together. At one point, she stops in front of a large canvas depicting a rain-soaked street. Neon reflections shimmering across the pavement. A lone figure with an umbrella walking toward a distant glow. This one, she whispers. It feels familiar. Adrian glances at her. It looks like your sketch. She blushes, remembering the drawing he saw. I guess I am drawn to moments that feel lonely, but hopeful. That is an interesting combination, he says. A lot of beauty comes from that place. His voice is low, quiet, almost reverent. She feels something tighten in her chest again, something warm and frightening. They move deeper into the gallery, and at one point her foot slips slightly on the polished floor. Adrian reaches out instinctively, his hand steadying her elbow, and the brief touch sends a spark up her arm. She tries to laugh it off, but he keeps his hand there a moment longer than necessary, his eyes searching hers as if trying to read a page he has never been allowed to see. You okay? He asks softly. Yes, she whispers. Just clumsy. I do not think so. The way. He says it makes her look away. She does not know how to handle someone who sees her like this. Not invisible. Not insignificant. Just Lena. As they walk toward the next exhibit, she finally asks the question she has been holding in all afternoon. Why did you want to meet me here? He hesitates for a single heartbeat, then answers with quiet honesty. Because this place makes people slow down and look closely. And I wanted to see who you are when the world is not demanding anything from you. The words hit her like a soft blow, unexpected and overwhelming. She does not know what to say, so she lets the silence hold the moment. They continue exploring until they reach the final room, where a small bench faces a large abstract piece. They sit, shoulders a respectful distance apart, but the air between them is charged with something neither of them is ready to name. Lena, Adrian says, I meant what I said before. Some accidents happen for a reason. She feels her pulse in her throat. Do you really believe that? He turns his head toward her, his eyes steady and sincere. I do now. And in that quiet gallery, surrounded by paintings that echo pieces of her heart, Lena realizes something that terrifies her. She is beginning to fall for a man she barely knows. A man she still believes is just someone who works in technology, unaware that the truth is a storm waiting just beyond the horizon, ready to upend everything she thinks she understands about him and about herself. The following week moves quietly, But the connection between Lena and Adrian grows with a steady, unspoken rhythm. They fall into an unexpected pattern. He visits the cafe every couple of days, sometimes staying only long enough to order a drink, sometimes lingering until her break so they can talk about art, life, and the strange paths people take without realizing where they are headed. Lena never asks why he keeps coming back, but a small part of her begins to wait for him, to listen for the bell over the door, to scan the sidewalk through the window whenever the cafe slows down. One evening, after her shift ends, she finds Adrian waiting outside, leaning casually against the brick wall with his hands in his pockets, as if he belongs there. Done for the day, he asks. She nods, brushing stray strands of hair behind her ear. Exhausted, but yes. Good, he replies. I wanted to show you something. She hesitates only for a moment before nodding, trusting him without quite understanding why. They walk through the neighborhood, the air crisp with the scent of early autumn. Streetlights cast long beams across the pavement, and the sound of distant traffic hums like a backdrop melody. After several blocks, they stop at a quiet overlook where the city lights stretch endlessly in front of them. Lena gasps softly. I did not know this spot existed. Most people do not, Adrian says. It is where I go when I need to breathe. She glances at him, surprised by the honesty in his voice. For a moment, he looks less like the composed man she met in that black SUV and more like someone carrying a weight he never talks about. She sits on the low stone ledge, pulling her coat tighter around her. He sits beside her, close enough for warmth but not close enough to overwhelm her. Can I ask you something? She finally says. He nods. Why do you always look tired? Not physically, just somewhere deeper. Adrian lets out a quiet breath, almost a sigh. It surprises her because he usually chooses his words carefully, but this time he seems willing to let them fall freely. Because people expect things from me, he says. Money, solutions, decisions. And sometimes I forget where I end and the expectations begin. She studies him with new understanding. That sounds lonely. It is, he admits softly. Most days. The honesty in his voice tugs at her heart in a way she cannot ignore. She has known loneliness too. She knows what it feels like to carry burdens quietly, hoping no one notices how heavy they really are. You do not have to be lonely tonight, she whispers before she realizes she has said it out loud. Adrian turns his head, his eyes catching the reflection of distant skyscraper lights. Something warm flickers there. Something grateful. Thank you, he says. I did not realize how much I needed to hear that. A comfortable silence settles between them, the kind of silence that exists only between people who feel safe. After a moment, he reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out a small paper bag. I stopped at the bakery down the street, he says. Thought you might need something sweet after working all day. She laughs softly, accepting the warm pastry inside. How did you know pastries are my weakness? A guess, he says with a smile that tells her it was not a guess at all. They sit together, sharing pastries and watching the glow of the city spread out below them. The moment feels fragile, perfect, suspended between two worlds. Adrian looks at her again, and this time there is no hesitation in his voice. Lena, you make things quiet, he says, in a good way. Her heart stumbles. What does that mean? It means, he says carefully, that when I am with you, the noise in my head fades. She does not know what to say, so she lets her shoulder lean gently against his, just enough to say she feels it too. Neither of them knows that this quiet moment, this peaceful overlook, will be the last calm before the reveal that will shake their fragile bond to its core. The night of the charity gala arrives sooner than Lena expects, and she spends most of the afternoon convincing herself that she has no business being there, that she should have politely declined Adrian's quiet invitation when he said he wanted her to see a different side of the world. But something in his voice, something sincere and unguarded, made her say yes before she could stop herself. Now she stands outside the grand hotel ballroom, clutching her small thrifted purse and praying her second-hand dress looks more expensive than it is. She smooths the fabric nervously, wishing her heartbeat would slow even a little. She has never attended anything remotely close to a gala before, and everything about the atmosphere feels overwhelming. The carpet is thick enough that her heels sink slightly, crystal chandeliers scatter light across polished marble floors, and guests glide past in gowns that probably cost more than her yearly rent. She is seconds away from turning around and slipping out unnoticed when a familiar voice anchors her. Lena. She turns, and there he is. Adrian looks different tonight, wrapped in a tailored black suit that fits him with effortless precision, his hair slightly tousled, as if he had run his fingers through it right before walking in. He looks every bit the kind of man who belongs in a room like this, powerful and elegant, and for a moment she wonders how she ever mistook him for someone ordinary. "You look beautiful," he says, and the sincerity in his voice softens her anxiety. She exhales shakily. "I almost did not come." "I am glad you did," he replies. "You do not have to stay long. Just let me show you something." He offers his arm, and she hesitates only a second before taking it, letting him guide her into the ballroom. The room glows with warm golden light, waiters weaving between guests with trays of champagne, a string quartet playing softly near the grand staircase. Lena tries to focus on the music, the flowers, anything to distract herself from how many important people are in the room. She leans closer to Adrian and whispers, "Are you sure I should be here?" "I want you here," he says simply. And for a moment, that is enough. They walk deeper into the room, and people begin to notice Adrian. Heads turn. Whispered conversations start. A few individuals approach him, men in suits greeting him with firm handshakes, women smiling brightly, and Lena steps back politely, assuming they are his friends or colleagues. But the way they address him feels elevated, respectful, even reverent. She catches pieces of their words. "Sir, the board will want your comment. Your keynote is expected later. The press is already preparing." Lena frowns, confused. She looks at Adrian, but he only gives her a small, reassuring nod. Before she can ask him anything, the event host steps onto the stage and taps the microphone, sending a soft chime through the ballroom. "Ladies and gentlemen," the host announces, "thank you for joining us for this year's Innovation and Arts Charity Gala. Tonight, we honor individuals whose contributions have shaped our city and beyond. Please welcome our guest of honor, the visionary founder and chief executive officer of Vale Dynamics, Adrian Vale." The applause hits Lena like a physical force. Her breath disappears. Her hands go cold. Every person in the room turns toward the man standing beside her. Adrian's name echoes through the ballroom, followed by titles she has only ever read in news articles she scrolls past, because they belong to a world she does not understand. She stares at him, stunned, her mind a blur of disbelief and betrayal. Chief Executive Officer. Founder. Billionaire. The man who rode in the SUV. The man who walked into her café. The man who held pastries and shared sunsets with her. He knew exactly who he was. She had no idea. Her voice trembles as she whispers, barely audible, "You lied to me." Adrian's eyes meet hers, regret flickering in them. "Lena, I was going to tell you." But the applause grows louder, swallowing his words, and Lena steps back, her heart fracturing with every new realization. She has never felt so small in her life. And as the crowd ushers him toward the stage, she realizes the terrible truth. She was never part of his world. She was just the girl who wandered into his car by accident. The moment Adrian steps onto the stage, Lena feels the entire ballroom closing in around her. The applause becomes a distant roar, muffled by the pounding in her ears, and her vision blurs as if the chandelier lights have become too bright. She backs away from the crowd, each step pulling her further from the man she thought she knew and deeper into a hollow ache forming in her chest. Her mind races through every moment they shared, replaying his gentle words, his quiet smiles, the way he listened to her as if she mattered. Now every memory feels tainted by the truth she was never meant to know. She slips out into the hallway, the heavy doors shutting behind her and dulling the noise to a faint echo. She presses her back against the wall, breathing hard, trying to understand how the man who sat beside her on a cold overlook and shared pastries could also be the billionaire CEO now delivering a keynote speech inside. She whispers to herself, "I was stupid. I should have known." Her throat tightens. She starts walking, not caring where she goes, as long as it is away from the golden world that never belonged to her. A few minutes later, the doors open and Adrian hurries out, scanning the hallway with urgency. When he sees her, relief floods his face, but she turns away instinctively, her arms folding around herself like armor. "Lena, please," he says as he approaches. "I need to explain." She shakes her head, her voice shaking even more. Explain what? That you let me believe you were just some guy who worked in technology? That you walked into my cafe every week without telling me who you were? You let me talk about my life, my worries, my stupid problems, and you never said a word about any of this. It was never my intention to deceive you, he says, guilt coloring every word. I like being seen as a person, not as a title or a bank account. Then you should have told me the truth, she snaps before her voice breaks. You knew who you were the entire time. I was the only one who did not. He reaches for her, but she steps back. Lena, I was going to tell you tonight. I brought you here because I wanted you to know me fully, not just the quiet parts. I wanted this to be the moment I showed you everything. You waited too long, she whispers. Tears fill her eyes, blurring the man standing in front of her. I trusted you, Adrian. And now I do not know what was real and what was just a fantasy you allowed me to believe. Everything was real, he insists, his voice raw. Every conversation, every moment, every sunset. I never lied about what I felt. But she is already turning away, the pain too sharp to bear. I cannot be someone you hide behind your quiet spots, she says. I cannot be the girl who makes you feel normal while you live a life I will never understand. He steps toward her again, desperation tightening his breath. Please do not walk away. Not like this. She looks at him, her heart shattering at the sight of sincerity and regret mixed in his eyes. But the wound is too fresh. Goodbye, Adrian, she whispers. Then she walks down the long hallway, each step feeling heavier than the last, leaving the man who accidentally changed her life staring after her with a helpless ache of his own, knowing he might have just lost the only person who ever saw him without the spotlight. For days after the gala, Lena moves through her life in a numb haze, as if someone has turned down the volume on the world. She goes to work, tutors her students, and keeps her head down, but everything feels heavier now, as if she left a piece of herself behind in that glittering ballroom. She avoids looking at the news, avoids walking near the places she once shared with Adrian, and avoids thinking about how his voice softened when he said her name. But she cannot avoid the ache, and she cannot avoid the truth that despite everything, she misses him. 1 week later, she receives an envelope slipped under the door of her apartment. There is no name on the front, only a simple embossed card inside with an address written in clean, elegant handwriting. 5th Street, the Art District, the same gallery they visited together. For a long moment she considers throwing it away, but something in the back of her mind whispers that closure matters. So she goes. The gallery is quiet when she arrives, the lights dimmed, the door unlocked as if waiting only for her. She steps inside cautiously, expecting emptiness, but instead her breath catches in her throat. The walls are lined with paintings, but not the ones from before. These are different. These are sketches she knows intimately. Her sketchbook pages transformed into full canvases, each one recreated with care, precision, and deep admiration. The rainy street she drew on a lonely night. The cafe window she sketched during her break. The overlook where she and Adrian shared pastries. And in the center of the room stands a single piece larger than all the others, illuminated under a warm spotlight. It is her, Lena, sitting on the stone ledge overlooking the city, wind in her hair, a quiet strength in her eyes. She presses a hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. A soft voice breaks the silence. It is called The Art of Lena Hart. I hope that was not too bold. She turns, and there he is, standing in the doorway. Adrian looks different now, not polished and untouchable like the night of the gala, but vulnerable, his eyes searching hers with a quiet plea. She feels her heart twist, remembering the hurt, the betrayal, but also the moments that felt undeniably real. You did all of this, she whispers, her voice trembling. I wanted to show you how I see you, he says. Not as someone beneath my world, not as a girl who stumbled into my car, but as someone extraordinary, someone who changed me. You should have been honest with me, she says, tears forming despite herself. He nods. I know. I was afraid. Afraid that if you knew who I was, you would treat me differently. Or worse, walk away. She lets out a shaky breath. I walked away because you hid the truth. And I would spend the rest of my life making that right if you let me, he says softly. But if you choose not to, I will still make sure this gallery stays open. Your work deserves to be seen. Her heart softens, just slightly. You did all of this for me, Because you believed in nothing but kindness when you thought I was no one, he says. Because you made me feel like a person when the world only sees me as a title. And because I love you, Lena. I love you without the suit, without the stage, without the spotlight. The words strike her like a warm shock, dissolving something cold inside her chest. She takes a small step toward him, then another. I am still hurt, she admits quietly. And that is fair, he says. But if you let me, I will spend every day proving that you can trust me. She hesitates, her fingers brushing the silver pendant at her neck, the one her mother left her, the one she clutched every time she needed courage. Then she looks up at him, her voice softer than a whisper. I do not want a world of secrets, Adrian. Then there will be none, he promises. She feels something shift in her heart, something healing, something hopeful. She steps closer until she is standing right in front of him. This time, she says, we start honest. He nods, emotion shining in his eyes. Honest, he repeats. And when she finally rises onto her toes and presses her lips to his, it feels like the moment her world realigns, not with perfection, but with truth. Weeks later, the gallery hosts its official opening night. People gather around her artwork, praising her talent, her story, her vision. And in the center of the room, under the painting of the overlook where everything began, Adrian kneels and opens a small velvet box. Lena Hart, he says, voice steady with love. Will you make the best mistake of my life permanent? Tears fill her eyes, overflowing with joy instead of heartbreak this time. She laughs through the tears and nods. Yes, she whispers. Yes, Adrian. 1,000 times yes. And just like that, the mistake that brought them together becomes the beginning of everything they were meant to be.